Alright, what's up guys? It's your boy Neptune back at it again with another video. And today I want to tell you guys about the 150,000 mile review on a 2011 Charger RT Max, okay? Now, personally, I'll say this, I haven't driven this car 150,000 miles, but for the mileage that it's at, I think it's at about 154,000 or so. For the mileage that it's at, first of all, let's talk about the exterior. Like, if you really get into it, you can see the minor imperfections, but for a car that's what, 13 years old, I wouldn't say that's too bad. You feel me? You can get into stuff like the rock chips and shit like that, but really that's gonna happen. I need a paint correction. But honestly, as far as like the car being clean, it's still pretty clean for the mileage and how old this car is, bro. Like, given like this is the original paint, original bumper, everything like that, like it's a little fucked, you know. You know what I'm saying? Like, every car has its little bullshit, but at the same time, that's what really makes it yours. You feel me? All right, now coming on the inside, guys, we do have 255 miles on the dash, which not terrible for a car this old. That's right around where it should be. I will say, since I've had this car, I've driven it about 18 to 20,000 miles. So like, I've driven the fuck out of this car more than the actual car itself has been, like, over the years that people had driven it. But honestly, this car was most definitely kept clean and nice, and I like to try to hold up to that standard. But it definitely still runs for being almost 13 years old, and it still runs good. Got mad fucking liquid. Now, like, obviously, this is an RT Max, so it had a lot of features. I've gone and do this in another video. If you want to see that video, go back. Charger RT Max still worth it in 2024? Personally, I think so. But realistically, all the features pretty much still work. Rear heated seats, iffy. Front heated seats work, you feel me? You know, the leather, a little worn, but like, it's 13-year-old leather, you know what I'm saying? A little worn, but for it to still be not torn to fucking shreds, I'd say that's pretty good. Now guys, if we're really gonna get into the engine and the transmission and stuff, like, this thing doesn't struggle to start, it doesn't struggle to shift. The engine and transmission are still going strong even to this day, and you can't say that's anything but good Mopar build quality. BMW don't got shit on us, that's all I'm saying. If we get under the hood for real, it's still a Hemi. It's loud as fuck. It's gonna run a little loud. Don't mind the wetness under here. I did just get a car wash, but it's gonna run loud. It's a Hemi. But if you really listen, you don't hear any ticking, any crazy shit. And I'll tell you guys, the Hemi tick thing, I feel like low-key, in my opinion, it might be a myth, just for the simple fact that if you get your oil changes done and you upgrade to a Hellcat oil pump, your lifters and cam will be doused in oil, and you're not gonna run into that issue unless you're like constantly going miles and thousands of miles over on your oil changes. As far as the transmission goes, honestly, that 5-speed, it puts in work. Now, given I've driven some 8-speed Mopars, and I can definitely say that they're a little better. You're kind of always in that power band, but the 5-speed is still puts in work. And also, as far as how old this transmission is, you can't really beat it. There's a reason they still put 5 speeds in them, their Pursuit vehicles. Also, you didn't hear that from me, but yeah, all Pursuits are 5 speeds, just saying. Maintenance, the only thing that I can see that went bad in that entire time was the fuel pump. And there was if you guys know Mopars, you know a few years ago there was a recall on the airbags on the passenger side. Those are the only things that I can see in the service records for this car that were ever replaced. And as far as when I got the car, I did have some issues when I very first got it, but by the time I had gotten the car had probably sat for probably a good 8 months. Like, if we're gonna be so real, the car had sat for a while before I got to it. So when I got it, I had an issue with the drive shaft carrier bang, typical for these V8 Mopars, bro. If you have any rear wheel drive Charger, Challenger, Scat Pack, Hellcat, or even RTs, clearly, eventually, if you drive your car hard enough and you drive it enough, you're gonna have an issue with either your drive shaft or your carrier bearing. They're pretty shit from the factory, but what I can tell you guys is when you upgrade to that aftermarket carrier bearing, it makes a whole load of difference. Okay, you're putting down you're putting more power into the ground a lot easier if that's really what you're looking for. If you're just looking for the car to run how it ran when you first got it, you feel me? Replace that fucking carrier bearing with an OEM one, it'll run perfectly fine. Now, I don't have issues exactly with my differential or anything like that, or the actual drive shaft itself. Like, the drive shaft itself, you know, it's a little rough for being 13 years old, but it still works. All I needed was that carrier bearing. I also had issues with cooling. I had not overheating, but like, you know, the car was running hot. I had a bad heater hose, and then my radiator fan literally broke off from the bracket in the front. I did a pull, and the torque broke the radiator fan off of the fucking radiator. So it came forward, belt chopped straight through the wires for the radiator fan. Radiator fan didn't work, car overheated. Got new wires for the radiator fan, wired it up, works fine since. And then my heater hose, if you guys know anything about these older Mopars, the heater hoses, they're just push togethers, they're not clamped. So eventually over time, as there's coolant running through there, the heater hose will start to push itself apart. And that happened to me on my way to work one day. I was on my way to work, and then all of a sudden there's smoke coming out of my hood. I'm like, oh shit, motor done. Like, I genuinely thought, like, I blew my motor. I've only had this car for about 4,000 miles, about fucking a month and a half. I just already blew the motor. I'm about a lemon law, niggas. Nope, heater hose came apart, coolant was spewing everywhere in my engine bay. Got that situated, car has not overheated, has not gotten hot since. Okay? Another issue I had, the suspension. Now, come here. If you buy an older Dodge Charger, I'm talking 11 through 14 into 2016, this front right side right here, when you get down in there, them tie rod ends and the inner tie rods, them shits will get fucked. Like, I just want to let you guys know, them shits will get fucked. And if you're sliding your car or you're taking hard turns, you're going to the track, you're driving the fuck out of it, you will go through those tie rod ends and those inner tie rods. It's bound to happen, but I'm gonna put you on game. Peep game and lock in. Advanced Auto Parts warranty those parts. So all I'm saying is, you feel me? You put one on, you pay for it, they're about $50. And if it goes again, you just take it back and be like, hey, this shit was fucked up when I got it. And I'm just saying, peep game, peep game. You didn't hear that. You know what? You did hear that. You heard that from Neptune, okay? Lock in. And then obviously we have basic maintenance that I had to do when I got the car. They changed the oil before I got it, but I changed it again because you know how dealers like to cheap out. I didn't know if there was like fucking conventional oil in my car, so I wasn't gonna go for that. Had to replace struts and shocks. The ride was pretty shit. If we come to the back, your rear control arms back here. Now, your uppers are going to be a lot harder to change. If you've ever tried to do upper control arms on a Chrysler or a Charger or a Challenger for the rear, then you would know that when you try to change those, they're so close to the body that you literally cannot get the bolts out for the top part of the upper control arms. So I replaced the rear sway bar links and the lower control arms in the back. Shit rides perfectly. The uppers, if they really slide out of the fucking joints, we'll deal with that when we get there. I guess drop the whole fucking subframe just to fix that shit. And if I'm gonna drop the subframe, I might as well throw a whole new rear end in the back of it just while I got it out, you know? All right, guys. Getting into the actual driving experience in this car. For 150,000 miles, bro, this thing drives pretty great. Only thing sometimes, you know, like transmission's old. I've driven Chargers where the transmission feels a lot older, but sometimes, like, depends on what you're doing, you definitely notice it. Like, if I try to take a turn with traction control on and the car like tries to do that shit where it just upshifts, or like right there, like the traction control is old, so like it definitely works a lot differently than traction control in newer cars. Like, I don't know how to explain it per se. It's more or less, it's not like it cuts the power. Like, it feels like it cuts everything. Like it just fucking completely nerfs the car and is like, no, like we're not, no. Like, no. Okay, so as far as the drive, the only thing I can say after 150,000 miles driving this car, engine, great, transmission, okay. Only thing that I can say that I have to complain about when driving this car for this long, or at this mileage, is the fucking suspension. Like, the suspension is definitely, it's real finicky when you get there up there in miles with this. As you can see, like, if you saw the Toronto POV drive, or even in this video, like, you hear every single bump that I hit, and I feel it. And it's like, I just feel like maybe it's just a Charger thing. This thing is pretty low and it's pretty heavy, but it's like, even if I'm going fast, you know how you're going fast, you're supposed to kind of float over bumps. This car does not. Like, it literally, you hit a bump, you are hitting that motherfucker. Like, you are smacking that shit to the point where, like, potholes will absolutely tear your shit up in this car. Like, it'll fuck you bad. And it just makes for a not too comfortable driving experience. Now, don't get me wrong, you guys have seen I can drive this car for fucking hours and hours and hours, and I plan to take this car lots of places. Stay tuned for that, because you guys are going to get a real nice video real soon. Not going to say too much. You guys will see when you see it. But driving this car, like, long distances or even short distances, it's worse on short distances, because once you first get in it, you really realize it most. But like going over bumps and shit, coming over like not curbs, but like pulling into the driveways and stuff, like you really feel it. And you also, the sounds the car makes, like it feels like my whole rear end is fucking just dropping down. Like, I don't know, like upgraded suspension is definitely something that a lot of Mopar owners look into. But I feel like even from the factory, and I've replaced a lot of my suspension parts for OEM, so at that point my car drives how it was built originally. And for this to be how this car drove when it was first built, obviously it's not going to be exactly the same regardless, because cars aren't really meant to be taken apart and put back together like that. But like, it's not going to be the same, but at the same time, it definitely could be better. Like, it's as close to when this car was made as it very well could be. Like, I've replaced every pretty much essential suspension part to make the ride for me a little better, and it still is kind of mid, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's definitely a good ride, like it's not bad, but even like getting this car in alignment is like questionable. And you would think, right, oh, frame damage, front end collision, the car's old, you're not the first owner and shit. I don't think this car has ever been in a front end collision, and I don't have frame damage, so it's also like getting this car in alignment is also a bitch. Like, this is one of those cars that, like, I've literally seen people have to take this car on and off the alignment rack, on and off, and then my alignment still won't be like perfect. Like, it'll be good. Like, when I hold the wheel straight, it drives straight, but it's like, you know, if I'm on the highway or something, like, you know, New York highways are kind of on a slant, so like it'll pull a lot more than other cars. Like, it'll pull, not pull, but it'll coast off to one side. I won't say pull, because when you pull, it pulls. You let go of the wheel and you're pulling one direction or the other. For this car, it's more or less like it kind of, you know, I can not touch the wheel and it goes straight, you feel me? I don't need to, like, you feel me? Alignment's valid, but if I was on like a highway right now instead of like a normal road, it would definitely kind of veer off more like this, like where it kind of veers into the other lane. Not too fast, not too slow, but it's definitely noticeable. Get a nice sound clip right here. Also, something I kind of want to get into, I feel as if this car was probably very fast for the time that it was in. Oh look, we're next to another Charger, a GT. Not gonna lie, guys, I don't know if I mentioned it, we are in Buffalo, New York right now. Lots and lots of Mopars here, lots and lots of Mopars. Like, where we're from, not too much. Like, there's obviously some, but not as many as here. We were at the Galleria Mall a minute ago, and literally, like, there was so many fucking just base model Chargers outside. Like, Shit was crazy, honestly.
My only other complaint is that it's a Dodge.
Drips, oil, drips, grease everywhere.
Was getting pics and vids to finish video. Then the fuckery commenced.
Oh, nah. Bad for business. Why are we getting blocked in right now? For what? For what?